They built pyramids from human skulls. For 60 years, they had never lost a single battle. Not one. From China to Europe, they erased cities, slaughtered millions, and made entire kingdoms vanish from history. But on September 3rd, 1260, in a valley you've never heard of, a group of former slave boys did the impossible. They stopped the unstoppable. This is the story of how the Mongol Empire's reign of terror finally met its end. And it almost didn't happen. The date is September 3rd, 1260. In a valley called Ain Jalut, two armies stand face to face. One has never tasted defeat. The other knows they're marching to their deaths. For 6 decades, the Mongol war machine has crushed every enemy that dared to resist. They've wiped entire civilizations off the map, killed millions, built pyramids from human skulls as warnings to anyone foolish enough to. From China to Eastern Europe, from Persia to Palestine, no army has ever stopped them. Ever. But today something different is about to happen. Something that will change the course of world history forever. The Mongols are led by General Kitbuqa, a Christian warrior who has spent his entire life serving the Great Khan. His army has just conquered Damascus and Aleppo. They've torn through the Middle East like a wildfire through dry grass. They're fresh off victories that seemed impossible. And now, nothing stands between them and Egypt. Nothing can stop them now. Facing them are the Mamluks of Egypt. But these aren't ordinary soldiers. These are slave warriors. Men stolen from their families as children, bought in markets like cattle, and trained for one single purpose: to kill. Their leader is a man named Qutuz. Just 3 years ago, he was nobody, a random officer in Cairo. Now he's the Sultan of Egypt, and he's about to make the most important decision of his life. The Mongols have sent him a letter. It's simple. It's terrifying. Surrender now, or we'll do to Cairo what we did to Baghdad. What they did to Baghdad was erase it from existence. 1 million people died in a single week. The rivers ran red with blood for days. The screams could be heard for miles. Qutuz reads the letter. His advisors tell him to negotiate, to buy time, to surrender if necessary. But Qutuz does something no one expects. He kills the Mongol messengers, all of them. Then he nails their heads to the gates of Cairo for everyone to see. This means war, total war. And the Mongols have never lost one. The largest empire in history. Let me put this in perspective for you. The Mongol Empire in 1260 is the largest empire in human history. It stretches from Korea to Poland. 13 million square miles, 1/5 of all the land on Earth. And it's still growing. Their secret isn't just brutality, it's speed. Mongol horses can travel 50 miles a day without rest. Their riders can shoot arrows while galloping at full speed. They can hit a target the size of a coin from 100 yards away while moving. But there's something else that makes them truly unbeatable. Fear. The choice. When Mongol armies approach a city, they offer a simple choice. Surrender immediately and live as slaves, or resist and watch everyone you love die horribly. Most cities surrender. The fall of Baghdad. In 1258, the Mongols took Baghdad. It was the greatest city in the Islamic world. Home to the House of Wisdom, where scholars preserved the knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome, where algebra was invented, where the first hospitals were built. The Mongols destroyed it all. They threw books into the river until the water turned black with ink. They killed so many people that witnesses said you could walk from one end of the city to the other without ever touching the ground, just stepping on bodies. This is what waits for Cairo if Qutuz loses. But the Mamluks aren't ordinary enemies. They have a secret weapon that even the Mongols fear. Every Mamluk warrior was once a slave boy, usually from Turkey or Central Asia. They were bought in markets, separated from their families forever, and trained from childhood for one purpose: war. They learned to fight with swords, spears, bows, and maces. They studied tactics, languages, and the Quran. Most importantly, they learn loyalty, not to family or tribe, but to each other and to Islam. By the time they earned their freedom, they were no longer the boys who had been stolen. They were living weapons, and they were brothers. Baybars is one of these brothers. He's Qutuz's greatest general, and he has a plan that might save Egypt. It's dangerous. It's never been tried before, and if it fails, the Islamic world ends forever. Here's what he knows. The Mongols are coming south through Palestine with about 20,000 men. They're confident because they've never lost. They're moving fast because that's how they always fight. Strike before the enemy can prepare. But Baybars has been watching them, learning their patterns, and he's noticed something important. The Mongols always do the same thing. They send a small force ahead to scout. Then they attack with their main army. It works every time because their enemies panic and make mistakes. This time will be different. This time, the Mamluks will use the Mongol strategy against them. Qutuz agrees to the plan, but he makes one change that will determine everything. Instead of staying safely in Cairo, he decides to lead the army himself. His advisors think he's insane. Sultans don't fight in battles. They give orders from far away and let generals take the risks. But Qutuz knows something they don't. His men need to see him fight. They need to know he's willing to die with them, because what they're about to attempt has never worked before. The Valley of Ain Jalut. It's early morning. The desert is still cold. Somewhere in the distance, dust rises on the horizon. The Mongols are coming. First, contact. The Mongol scouts arrive first, just as Baybars predicted. About 1,000 horsemen, riding hard and fast. They see a small group of Mamluk cavalry waiting for them, maybe 500 men. Easy targets. The Mongols attack immediately. Their arrows darken the sky. Their horses thunder across the sand. The Mamluks seem to panic. They turn and run. This is exactly what the Mongols expect. Every enemy runs at first. Then the main Mongol army arrives and finishes the job. It's happened 1,000 times before. But something's wrong. The bait. The Mamluks aren't running in terror. They're retreating slowly, in perfect formation. They're firing arrows as they go, hitting Mongol riders. And they're leading the Mongols deeper into the valley. Kitbuqa arrives with the main Mongol force just as his scouts disappear around a bend. He can hear fighting ahead, but he can't see it. The valley walls are too high. The path is too narrow. He should be suspicious. He should send more scouts. He should wait. But he's a Mongol general, and Mongol generals don't wait. They attack. It's worked for 60 years. Why would today be different? The Mongol army pours into the valley like water through a funnel. 20,000 of the world's best warriors, eager for another easy victory. They can smell victory ahead. They can almost taste the gold they'll take from Cairo. That's when they hear the horns. The sound comes from everywhere at once, from the hills on both sides of the valley, from behind them, from ahead. It's not one horn, it's hundreds. And then they see them. Mamluk warriors, rising up from hidden positions like demons from the sand. Thousands of them, maybe 30,000, all around them. For the first time in 60 years, a Mongol army is trapped. But the Mongols are still Mongols. They don't panic, they don't surrender, they form up and prepare to fight their way out. They've been outnumbered before, they've been surprised before, they've never lost before. Kitbuqa orders his men to break out toward the south. It's the shortest path to open ground. If they can reach the desert, they can use their speed and archery to turn the battle around. Their arrows find their marks. Their horses crash into the Mamluk lines. For a moment, it looks like they might succeed. But then Qutuz does something that changes everything. He takes off his helmet. He throws it on the ground, and he screams at the top of his lungs, "O Islam!" Every Mamluk warrior hears him. They see their sultan, their leader, fighting like a common soldier, bleeding like they're bleeding, risking everything like they're risking everything. The effect is electric. The Mamluks surge forward with a fury the Mongols have never seen before. These aren't terrified farmers or soft city dwellers. These are professional killers who've trained their entire lives for this moment. The battle becomes a slaughter. But for the first time in decades, it's not the Mongols doing the slaughtering. Kitbuqa fights like a lion. His sword cuts down a dozen Mamluk warriors before he's finally overwhelmed. With his last breath, he shouts defiance at his enemies. He dies as he lived, without fear. When the sun sets on September 3rd, 1260, almost the entire Mongol army is dead. A few hundred escape to tell the tale. The rest become carrion for desert vultures. But the real victory isn't just military, it's psychological. For 60 years, the Mongols seemed unstoppable, chosen by heaven, blessed by the gods. Today, that myth dies in the sand of Palestine. News of the victory spreads like wildfire. From Cairo to Baghdad to Damascus, people who had lived in terror for decades suddenly dare to hope again. The Mongols can be beaten. The tide of conquest can be turned.
In Mongolia, far to the east, the great Khan Mongol receives the news months later. For the first time since the empire began, a Mongol army has been completely destroyed. The western expansion stops immediately. Resources that would have been used to conquer Africa and Europe are redirected to other frontiers. The Mamluks use this breathing room wisely. Over the next few years, they recapture every city the Mongols took in Palestine and Syria. Baybars becomes the new sultan after Qutuz is assassinated by his own officers. It's a reminder that medieval politics were always deadly, even among allies. But Baybars continues the campaign against the Mongols in the Crusader states. By 1300, the Mongol Empire is fragmenting. The unified war machine that once threatened to conquer the world breaks apart into competing kingdoms. They fight each other instead of expanding westward. The Mamluks rule Egypt and Syria for another 250 years. They become patrons of art, science, and architecture. Cairo grows into one of the richest cities in the world. The knowledge preserved in Islamic libraries helps fuel the European Renaissance centuries later. None of this would have happened if Qutuz had chosen differently on that morning in September. If he had stayed in Cairo. If he had listened to the advisors who told him to negotiate. If he had been a normal ruler, Ain Jalut saved more than Egypt. It saved the idea that any empire, no matter how powerful, can be stopped. The Mongols never forgot the lesson either. If he had been a normal ruler, he would not be in the place. In later centuries, when they faced other enemies who used similar tactics, they were more cautious. The age of easy conquest was over. Today, the battlefield of Ain Jalut is a quiet valley in the West Bank. There are no monuments to mark what happened there. No tourist signs explaining its importance. Most visitors don't know they're standing where the course of world history changed. But on September 3rd, 1260, right where they're standing, a group of former slave boys proved that even the mightiest empire in human history could bleed. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. Next week, we're covering another battle that changed everything, one you definitely haven't heard of.